Hey, Jeremy from Lucky Hat Outdoors, and today I'm going to do an unboxing and kind of a first impressions review of a Generation 4 Glock 19. And once we're done with that, I'm going to throw in a Surefire light and show you how to put in a 3.5 pound disconnector. So it's a little disingenuous for me to say that I'm going to do an unboxing and a review of this handgun, because I've actually owned probably three, I think, Glock 19s over the past 15 years. And for one reason or the other, I've always migrated away from them, and I've always regretted every one that I've sold. So this is a firearm that's really familiar to me. It's one of my favorite handguns on the face of the planet. And, well, I needed another one, and I had traded in some other stuff. So this is going to be my new Glock 19. Now this particular gun is kind of a special edition. The shop referred to it as a Glock 19 TALO. And it comes from TALO Distributors. I don't believe it's a Glock special edition. I think it's a distributor level special edition. And as you'll see in the moment, the only real big difference is the sights. I picked this up at a local gun shop for the civilian price, and it's at $5.69. So let's go ahead and get into it. Of course, you get the ubiquitous Glock box, and inside we have one Gen 4 Glock 19. Comes with three high capacity 15 round magazines, Glock gun lock. Comes with the cleaning rod and bore brush, just like every other Glock. And these are actually a neat little inclusion, because the rod works well enough, and it's plastic, and it'll thread on the bore brush, but it's also slotted for patches. So this is actually, I have a couple of these just floating around in various cleaning kits. They're not a bad thing to have. And the Glock magazine loader, which is, in my opinion, worthless. And since this is a Gen 4, this comes with the replaceable back straps. So you get a package of 4 back straps. You get an extra pin for putting them on, and if you look, they actually kind of have a plastic punch inside the container, and we'll get into all of that. Like I said, this came from TALO Distributors. You get a nifty little card in the box that explains it, and basically what makes this a special edition, and I'll show you more in a moment, is it comes with a factory night sight setup. And according to the card, these sights came from Ameriglow. And what they turned me on about it is it's a blacked out rear sight with a U-notch. And more lately, my favorite close-in kind of defensive pistol setup for sights is a tritium front with a blacked out rear and a U-notch. I think it's very quick, and I think it's very, very reliable. And I do a lot of point shooting up close, so I like being able to focus on just the one dot. And I've had this debate before with guys that'll tell you that you need green dots on the rear and an orange dot in the front, or vice versa, and that way you don't misalign your sights at night. And what I found is if you hold the handgun and you aim it, everything lines up pretty naturally. Now if you try to put that front dot outside of the rear dots, you have to hold the gun so unnaturally that anybody with any level of experience should notice that problem. So I am a huge proponent of the front tritium sight, and I love a U-notch blacked out rear. So when I saw this pistol, probably could have saved some bucks going with a basic gun and then ordering my own sights later, and I might have gone with a different set, probably honestly 10-8 if they make them, or Warren, which I know they make them. But fresh out of the box with the same price as a standard Gen 4 Glock with the 3-dot night sights, I couldn't pass this one up. And there you have it. That's the basics of the box for the Glock 19. So the Gen 4 Glocks made a couple of changes versus what a lot of people are used to and what I'm used to. This is my first Gen 4. And one thing is they replaced the magazine release with a bigger button here, which I'm kind of ambivalent about. In the old Gen 3s, I used to pull out the 9mm button and put in a 45 button, and it would extend out a little bit. And I'm not quite sure yet, I haven't looked into it as to whether or not you can do this. They kind of went with the rough texture finish, which I like, especially fresh out of the box. I haven't decided if I'm going to do stippling work on this gun yet, and I probably will just because I can't help tinkering. But for fresh out of the box, this rough finish on the Gen 4s I really like. My only complaint on the grip is they left the finger grooves, which I hate. And then they shipped extra back straps. And the idea here was to get ahead of like Smith M&Ps and these other guns where you could adjust the back straps and make them fit differently. So they gave you two types. One's with a beaver tail and one's without. And these come in medium and large. And the installation, which I've done once, is fairly simple. You get a punch here, and I'll show you this a little closer. But there's a pin in the back that you can just knock out. And you slide the grip panels on, kind of bottom up. And once you've done that, you've got a slightly bigger grip with a beaver tail. I kind of like the idea of a beaver tail. I am not at all happy with the additional width, so I will not use these unless I can figure out a way to blend this beaver tail in when I do the stippling. So this is the kind of thing that's some folks really like, but it's very pointless for me. And like I said, here in a second I'll show you up close how this goes together. It's fairly simple. I do like the fact that they kind of give you a universal tool slash holder. I just hate the fact that they set it up where you have to take all the panels off to get at the punch. And the only other major change is internal. And the Glock Gen 4s went with a kind of a two-piece guide rod and spring versus the older Gen 3, which was a single-piece fixed guide rod and spring. I know when they first did this redesign, they had some pretty big problems with this system, and it's my understanding from talking to a lot of guys that have been Glock shooters that these problems have been eliminated and they've fixed it. So, anytime I'm getting a defensive gun, I want to think about flashlights. First off, in my law enforcement career, I spent a lot more time out at night than I ever did in the daytime. So it's kind of second nature for me to have a flashlight. And second off, statistically, defensive shootings are going to happen in low light. And one of the things that turned me back onto the Glock 19 and basically was a real impetus for me wanting to get another one of these was the introduction of the Surefire XC1. And this little light was almost perfectly designed, and probably knowing Surefire was expressly designed to fit the Glock 19. So this is a used one. I had a deal going with a buddy of mine. He wanted an older handgun of mine, and these were really expensive. So I basically traded him this and a little cash for the handgun. And so we're going to go ahead and slap it on, which is painfully simple. You just slide it onto the Glock accessory rails, and there's a flathead screw. Tighten it on, and there we go. Overall, so far, I really like this. I'm going to do a bigger review on the XC1 later, maybe get out at night and show you guys how it works. But for this size pistol, I mean, this is a light that I can stick this in inside the waistband holster and still have a tack light on a gun that holds 16 rounds. So that's a pretty amazing little defensive package right there. Hey, Jeremy from Lucky Hat Outdoors, and if you enjoyed our videos and had a good time, make sure you subscribe to our channel and check us out on Facebook and Instagram.